Hi everyone, welcome to the Quantum Bridge again. We have Jane back with us. Welcome to the show again, Jane.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
If my arms end up doing funny moves and things because I've got the cat on my lap, so she's decided to join us as well today. But so
Welcome, Lily.
yeah, welcome Lily as well. Yeah. So we were having a little chat beforehand what we're going to discuss. So I'm going to hand over to Casper. And what did we decide in the end?
Right, another cliffhanger this early in the in the recording. Excellent. Firstly, firstly, hi, Jane. Lovely to see you as always. Thank you for making time for us. We and I think many people at the moment are either discussing or thinking about or seeing a lot of things relating to the divine masculine as well as the divine feminine, and obviously those sorts of things will mean many different things to many different people. But it might be nice for us, we three, to touch on that area. So, Jane, to turn this over to you again for this recording, can you give us some insights around how you see that interplay of those two polarities, and also just maybe what they mean to you currently in the paradigms that most of us are inhabiting?
Wow. So we decided to go into this topic like right before.
That's right.
But that is
No pressure.
that's actually a really big, broad question. So I'll start talking, but if I go on for too long, just kind of interject and ask me to clarify.
We'll rein each other in, don't worry.
Yeah. I may need to draw some really poor pictures. Art is not something
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to sell that.
I'll need the pictures, yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of people talk about what the divine feminine is and what the divine masculine is. And generally you'll see them aligning. But I want to pull out and look at the big picture of how human consciousness manifests and works with the energetics of what we call divine feminine and divine masculine, because the energetics manifest and reverberate at different levels, at different frequencies, and mean different things depending on the level of consciousness or the level that the energetics are embedded in the energy field. Okay. To start the conversation, though, we'll begin with the concept of the human energy field and the way it's shown to me when I'm working. And I align with, myself, my higher self, my I am, divine soul lineage, and then connect into source and hold those frequencies. So it's not just like, hey, I'm channeling so and so, it's me throughout the frequencies connecting in and aligned with source. Okay. And the soul journey that I've had that give me this information. And we all hold different information, and we're all playing a really important role to everybody waking up. Okay. So to begin with, the human energy field has 12 layers at a base minimum. There are individuals on Earth who will be woken up to 36 layers, maybe even 48. As humanity progresses and continues to expand its consciousness and evolve, it will become like very common, like the day-to-day state of being, that you'll be at 36 and or 48. Okay. And that's a different state of consciousness, a different energetic manifestation of the body and definition of physicality, shall we say. Okay. We won't go there. But let's just work with the first 12 layers. Okay. And each layer holds a different level of your consciousness and interfaces with reality in a different way. All right. The way I see or experience the divine masculine, divine feminine energetics manifesting is divine masculine energetics come in on the right side of the energy field. Okay. Divine feminine energies come in on the left side of the energy field. Okay. And the energy field will have this split a vertical split separating the two levels of consciousness. Okay. Part of our journey from the first level up to the 12 and beyond is to create oneness from within and intertwine the feminine and the masculine as we go up the layers. Okay. So they're not meant to be separated, but they do hold different energetics and they work a different way. Okay. In the lower frequencies, so say in the first 5 layers, maybe, and sometimes in the 6th, you're still working with polarity energetics, okay? The goodies and the baddies, so to speak, to a certain extent. And so and these are general statements, not specific. Generally, what you'll see is divine masculine energetics will be power, control, domination. These are wounded energetics. Not having a choice, not taking responsibility. Okay, these are sort of wounded energetics that we see playing out in society. Okay, but that is not the definition of exalted divine masculine consciousness. Okay, those are the wounds. They're meant to be cleared. As you start to expand your consciousness up and you clear your wounds, you start to move out of polarity and you start to go into 7th, 8th, and 9th layers. That's where you're going to start accessing your monadic levels of consciousness and your higher self. And then beyond that, 10, 11, 12, so that's your Christic Buddhic layer, where we interface with our I am. And that's where you start to learn yourself as an expression of source. So understand the paradigms of consciousness are shifting as you go higher, as you expand your consciousness. When you're moving into those levels of consciousness, the divine masculine starts to manifest as, how do you choose to express yourself? Okay. How do you take responsibility? How do you envision? How do you choose to manifest as an expression of source consciousness? So you always have a choice. You always have responsibility, right? And then when they say the divine masculine, Christic kind of expression, that means you're choosing to express yourself in alignment with love and light, light and love of source. And you learn to understand how every single thought form you have manifests either as a wound out of alignment or in alignment. Okay. So that's a broad brushstroke overview of the divine masculine going up through the frequencies. When you look at the divine feminine, and again, just general statements, divine feminine wounds, I am not enough. I have been abandoned. Abandonment is a huge divine feminine wound. Okay. Let's see. I am not connected. I cannot see. So all your psychic clair abilities come from the divine feminine side, and I'll explain that. Okay, so those are wounds. And we all know, like, I'm homeless, I have no self-worth, I can't get a job, etc., etc. As you go up again to the monadic, Christic, Buddhic levels of consciousness, it is about how you allow yourself to be an expression of, one, your divine soul consciousness, you as an expression of source and as source. So what you're dealing with as you go into the monadic and Christic Buddhic, monadic, generally speaking, 7th, 8th, and 9th layers, is about picking apart, I guess, releasing, I had a better word, but it's not coming to me, separation from self, energetics. So how you separate yourself through your own egoic mind from your higher levels of consciousness. You go up to Christic Buddhic, again, broad generalizations, it's about separation from source energetics. Okay? And so you have to go from, it's about the journey of the identity as a quantum being, going up the levels of consciousness, just working with the first 12, because it's another paradigm shift from 12 to 24. We'll skip that. Yeah. And then the divine masculine is that journey of, who do I choose to be? How do I choose to co-create as an expression of source, working with my own source consciousness? The divine feminine is, I am an expression of source. I am connected to all that is. I allow the flow. Yeah. So then, as you go up and you remove your wounds, you build yourself back into this. And this line of demarcation dissolves, doesn't exist anymore. Okay. And then when I talked about, like, from, let me show you this, at each of the 12 layers, if we show the human, let's show the energy field again. And then the energy field, say vertically speaking, so you've got this, so for me this is masculine, feminine, right? And then you've got the first 3 layers, 6, 9, 12. You slowly have to dissolve the frequency barriers between 3 and 4, 6 and 7, 9 and 10, right? So you have to integrate yourself slowly every time you go up, releasing divine feminine, divine masculine wounds. So you integrate into the next higher level of consciousness. You're working with still subtly polarized energetics at 4, 5, and 6. Okay, you're still in individuality as a consciousness. So it's a little bit more subtle and nuanced here. Then you dissolve the frequency barrier from 6 to 7. And sometimes they call this getting your human angelic wings. But really here, it's a shift of consciousness where you're beginning to see yourself as a quantum being. Yeah, you realize you're a soul having a human experience. You realize that you've incarnated and existed at many, many different levels of consciousness. You understand that you have a soul consciousness. I'm going to put it up here, even though it's much higher up. So when they say that the 12D energy matrix is an avatar, it truly is. Yeah. And as you expand up into 24 and 36 layers of consciousness, you truly start to anchor in you as, I'm going to say, divine cosmic being, as a pure expression of source, into like your energetics. So I don't know, did that cover kind of what you have any questions?
Well, is this, I don't even know if I've got the language to ask it, but is this a sort of a normal process that we all go through, or are there like external forces making this even harder than it normally would be?
Ooh, dun,
So,
dun, dun.
so when we look at that more fractured one, because we see a lot of things in society, like you say, trying to create divisions and things. So, yeah. What's at play there? Are there forces making this way more difficult?
So say let's call this the beginnings of oneness from within. Oneness from within is actually a much higher level of integration. What you have to understand is that the templating at these different levels of consciousness is held as a result of your multidimensional experiences, right? So humans currently are holding at higher levels collective consciousness templating for our solar system, which have distortions. Our galaxy has templating for divine masculine energetic distortions, okay? All of those need to be cleared. So when you say, are there other energetics at play? Yes, there are those energetics at play. But then also, if you look more practically, this is the history of the earth. If you go into the history of earth, there were light beings that came. I'm just going to use the term light being as a broad brushstroke definition, because different beings holding different energies came to start manifesting, creating the templating for what earth would become. Yeah. What happened was is some of those energetics became distorted or tampered with. So then you've got your Mu, your Lemuria, your Atlantis, the flood, Egypt, right? And as you go through that timeline, consciousness slowly descended. Yeah. And the beings on earth evolved with lesser degrees of connectivity and consciousness. Okay. That comes from the thought forms, how you perceive yourself, how you're able to connect into consciousness and all that is. So what you see is as the beings on earth started to lose their connection to themselves, to Mother Earth, and to Source, we became cut off. And now the patterns that we see affecting 3D humanity can only exist when an individual is separated from self. And I'll say higher self is where you begin really shifting your frequencies up to I am at 12, and you go 24, 36, and connecting into your soul's divinity. Yeah. What we are doing now is they call it the yuga or whatever, the frequencies in this part of the galaxy, the universe, et cetera, are holding energetics where they are rebuilding, reintegrating the energetics where we start aligning back with ourselves as an expression of source. Okay. So we were talking earlier about how everybody, and it's like May 12th, 2023, for anybody who watches this later, we're going through a series of divine cosmic consciousness frequencies that are, say, directives of source, but they hold their own consciousness. And they're enveloping Mother Earth and this part of the galaxy at this time, because there are some parts of the galaxy that have either already done their work. They're saying generally have already done their work. We'll leave it at that. But these energetics are the energetics of what we're calling the shift. And a dynamic of the shift is that you have to choose, right? So divine masculine at very high levels. So, we're going, how high would you go up to for? They're saying it affects all levels, 1, 2, but they're saying it will reverberate 1 to 48 and beyond levels of consciousness, right? Because it's about the choice to start reconnecting with yourself as a divine cosmic being, what is really your soul. Because these are just avatar matrices. Yeah. And they're saying when the individual chooses from their heart and has the vision of themselves becoming all that they can become in alignment with love and light, light and love, source, God, all that is, however you see it, you're allowing those energetics to start merging with your energy field. The average human isn't going to feel those energetics like maybe from 9 to 48. Some will, many won't. But the fact that from your heart and in your mind, you're choosing to know who you are from within, starting to go from this, I'm done, to this, I'm connected, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, I'm a co-creator with God, source, all that is. Then the energetics start embedding. And that's when people are like, oh, my teeth are vibrating. You're just being activated, let it go.
I mean, I felt this over the last few years, rightly or wrongly, that a lot of the events that we have in the world are assisting, if you like, to help people make these choices. So like, do you want this or do you want that? Get lots of things thrown at us, and everyone goes, oh, what's going on? It's like, well, like, that's how I see it. I just think, look, just, I made a choice a few years back, like you say, I was like, right, this is how I want things, or I'm going to certainly be. And I just feel that, just more and more things play out to help people choose their lanes, if you get what I mean. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, the frequencies are almost palpitating with how much love, how much help, but also your own soul as a divine cosmic consciousness, as a pure expression of source, wants to connect and bring you back into the fold. A long time ago, let's say like the flood period or the fall of Atlantis, and the decrease in consciousness was starting even before that, even though they say there were moments in Atlantis, they're saying. It's all relative. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm going to ask them to bring me back. Right. What happened is the consciousness of humanity started to drop so low that Mother Earth, as a quantum cosmic being herself, kind of had to cut herself off because the densities where humanity was going was just too low. Yeah. And what is happening now is she is a divine cosmic consciousness. We all exist as this, but as humanity, we're a part of her. So when we fell, in a sense, she holds lots of wounds herself. As we start to connect back into our higher selves, our I ams, we connect with our soul's divinity, we express ourselves, we see ourselves as an expression of source, which is so important. It takes 2 seconds, but you have to allow yourself to be that. We're bringing back online those aspects of Mother Earth herself. They're reactivating because Earth was supposed to be heaven on earth. It is supposed to be like a bountiful, gorgeous place for humanity, being, spirit, consciousness to explore co-creation in alignment with source. And they call that often the divine feminine, but it is having the vision, the divine masculine, right? The choice to co-create with an open heart in alignment with the love and light and love source. Because the divine masculine, you can choose to create destruction as well. The divine feminine also creates destruction in her own way, but they're not exalted and they're not in alignment.
Opens up a lot of things.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot to take in. A rather lovely lot to take in.
Yeah.
Can I just ask? We may not even have time today to do this, but there are certain terms that you use, Jane, like templating, and talking about things like moving through these different sort of paradigm shifts. Maybe we need to do a recording where we literally go through and give some of those as something that sort of anchors things for people to have ways to navigate through this lovely material, which I do believe is quantum by nature. And part of them internally, at whatever level they're at, will just manage to do that. But it would be nice to maybe to get a level of structure. Maybe that's a rather masculine thing to expect. But in terms of the word template, do you mind just going into that for a moment for us?
Right. So I guess templating could be a term. Some people say coding, right? Templating. There are different levels that you can look at it, right? But I guess if you're to pick it apart from the perspective of you as a quantum being, and imagine yourself as a sphere with 12 layers. This is only 2-dimensional. Imagine yourself. When we're talking about templating, it is about choosing to see yourself as a pure expression of source, Okay. And then the templating are the frequencies, the knowledge, who you are as a quantum being, right? In alignment with the love and light and love of source, or your soul's divine blueprint, and waking it up. Okay. But because we've been given free will, we've gone in and, we've mucked up our coding, our templating, right? There's a bunch of bugs in the coding.
Yeah.
And we have to go through and be like, I'm not having that. That's not who I choose to be. And you work with this through consciousness energetics. This isn't super complicated. We are all channelers. We are already quantum. We are already connected to source. It's just about learning how to work with your own consciousness to go from here to here. And the more of us who do it, the more it's like, because it's about believing, it's about knowing, it's about, it works like that. Okay, did that. Oh, and I felt it. Okay, yep, validated. And then things get validated over and over again. And then it becomes your truth. And when it becomes your truth, that's your identity, that's who you are. And then you resonate at this. And the more of us who become this, the easier it is for others to follow. And it's going to happen very, very quickly.
Yes, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I heard from another show that, in essence, we would reach a utopia type place in 170 years as an inevitability, that in an organic way. However, obviously, if we got our acts together, we could speed this up. Maybe, I don't know how you feel about something like that. Is there a snowball effect, or
Yes,
that it can't be stopped in that sense? But it is our choice.
No, I agree. It is moving forward. But it's, when they talk about the choice, like you said, the paths are what I'm going to say, to the light, you knowing yourself, to the light. And when you take that path and as you expand your consciousness, it is painful to make decisions or hold energetics which are not in alignment with your higher frequency state of being. Even I have it. And I'll give you an example. I was with my mom. Should I give an example?
Go for it. If you don't mind it, if you're happy to.
I was home for 10 days with my parents visiting. And I said I'd cook dinner for my aunt and uncle. And I gave my mom a list of groceries. Explicit. Yeah, literal, explicit, no ambiguity. I think I got half of what I asked for. And from that, she came home and I had an hour and a half to cook like a 4-course meal. And I'm like, I have half of what I need. What's happened here? Let's just say my response was not this response. And
yeah, we got that feeling, Jane.
Yeah.
we have mothers too.
So what happened is when I did the evening, when I went to connect, they're like, no, you're not allowed. I mean, I got to a certain level and they're like, from there, no. I'm like, they're like, you chose X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and D energetics in that moment, and you hold them as your identity. You cannot choose to be these frequencies and be those frequencies. So if you want to move up and hold the higher frequencies you were yesterday, you have to drop that. Fair enough. So I had to work at that, and I had to be honest with myself, like, okay, I see what I did wrong. I will not go there again. But this happens with behavior that is considered acceptable in society today, right? When I walk the land, and the trees will talk and the land will come forward and the water is effervescent and everything is talking to you. It's amazing. It's stunning. I have slugs in my back garden. I don't like them, but I see how gentle and sweet they are. And I'm like, I really want to like it. No, can't.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it. There's a moth in my mom's house. There's like 10 of them. Can I kill them? So I catch them and I put them outside. So you live life differently. You make different choices, because to make different choices means you choose not to hold the frequencies of being interconnected with all that is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that, you know, sometimes I look at myself in that way. I think, you know, I'll put my foot down about something. I think, why am I so, you know, because to someone else, they're just, why don't you just do that? I can't, I don't, you know, I don't know why, but it's that thing inside. It's saying, do not do that thing, you know, whatever it is, you know. And to other people, you know, they'll be like, well, you know, just put it on your face for 5 minutes. And I'm like, I can't, guys, you know. There's certain things that, like I say, throughout my life, they're kind of like red lines, I suppose, like saying, they're like, yeah, I said, I can't do that. And that's when I suppose you hold your ground, and it's good that there's us that do, I'd say.
But it also shows the frequencies that kind of you're naturally attuned to and that you naturally hold. There's some people on earth that have really, really dense wounds that they're here to clear. I mean, this is a clearing on so many levels. Like what they're doing on earth, it is bigger than just humanity ascending. It is a clearing of the dross that's collected through many, many timelines. Many, many timelines.
My whole life.
Could we call it a draining of the swamp?
Yeah. Rebuilding, a rebuilding. Because what's happening to us, this to this, our solar system is being cleaned up, our galaxy is being cleaned up. We clear all of that within ourselves. Some of us as humans hold some of the darkest energy from our memories as a quantum beings, and we just have to like let it go. It doesn't have to be painful either.
No, I agree. So, I mean, on a positive note, I would say, you know, I feel this shift to a better place. So I know sometimes it looks messy and, you know, out there. But I mean, I suppose, like I said earlier, I sort of see the process. So I don't worry about it like I used to, you know, when everyone's like, well, you know, I wish the others would wake up and wake up. I think, well, they will when their buttons are pushed enough, and they'll be asked to make their decision. And I think, like you say, all we can do is our own internal work, which in turn affects the collective. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's good. makes a nice change.
There is a lovely aspect here that's come up then around that. But actually, that's something that is often spoken about, this thing of working on yourself. And obviously, there are different ways to come at this. There's phrases like "be the change that you want to see in the world," or that through your own spiritual development, the world as a projection will change, or the world that you are receiving, if indeed we are receivers rather than projecting. You will change in the aspect that you can deal with it. You can just take it as it is. You don't need to put your own stamp on it in some ways. And I think that maybe we could all consider, and maybe the audience will find this relevant and interesting as well, how much the internal work affects the external. I mean, ultimately, I suppose at whatever level you reach, there comes a point a bit like the falling away of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because they are constructs. I mean, at the end of the day, any of these things are things that we're making with language, and don't, in some way, they don't actually exist, but they're maybe serving their purpose for us at the moment. But that differentiator that we might feel at the moment between an external world and an internal world, even if ultimately that doesn't hold validity as you move through these different phases of ascension. I think that for most people, that might be all. I shouldn't really use the word people, meaning persona, meaning person, but for most beings, that movement and that reflection is maybe something that we could all look at and talk about. How relevant, how much are we going to hold on to that, Jane? How long is it going to be for many people, do you think, or those that you tune into might say, when that falls away? That is, that just tied to ego? Is this thing of there being an external and internal world very soon going to fall away, or is that something that for most is going to be quite a protracted journey still, do you think?
So I would say it's an evolution. And I get uncomfortable when it goes to time and pigeonholing, because everybody's on a different journey.
Well, of course, there's no time, so that doesn't help either. Yeah.
Well, what I would say is, as you raise your consciousness and you start tapping into, 10, 11, 12, you're learning that you are an expression of source and you're connected to all that is. Then 12 to 24, like, you're learning how to be like a co-creator as source consciousness. So you're held to a much higher level of responsibility for, like, your divine masculine, what you choose to create, who you choose to be, but also how you interconnect with everything around you. So when you say the internal world and the external world, I'm going to ask them if they have a comment on this. Sorry, hold on. What do you guys because I feel like they're chirping. Oh, they're saying ultimately it all becomes oneness and there is no separation. Yeah, but from you begin to live your life in union with all that is, but they're showing me the human, or I'm going to say the physicality, into what becomes a light body. You coexist with all the life around you. So they're showing me the plants and everything else. It's alive, and you enjoy each other simultaneously as one. So there is no like harm or hurt, or do you see what I'm kind of getting at?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's I think really just painting that picture and finishing on that note, just purely because of time, or timing being our enemy for the moment. I think that leaves us hopefully at another place where we've touched on that divine masculine and divine feminine area, which we said we would, but we've also opened up to that next conversation, where I hope that we can revisit a number of these areas and develop them. But for now, and again, Jane, purely because we're running out of time, I found that, as always with your material, and just to say, I found it fascinating. The other thing I wanted to add is, not only are the people externally, in terms of an audience, I hope, really enjoying what you're delivering here and bringing to bear, but actually a lot of our own network. So people who are actually other participants in our channel really loving the material that you're bringing forward. So I just wanted to pass that on too.
Thank you. I want to thank you for interconnecting us all.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, both of our absolute pleasure. We're only a platform here, and the whole idea is to bring forward these beautiful voices and souls, and we're just very glad that we seem to be doing that. That's all that matters to us.
But you're building oneness from within, from a societal perspective, interconnecting it with us, sharing, our energies merge, and so it's all really beautiful. Thank you guys for all that you are.
Pleasure, and thank you for all your time.
Love you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
You too. Bye.